Hi there, in this video we're going to do this, where it fades in and then goes for a little bit, and then this guy appears. We'll play with the scale. So we're going to just do some basic animation. It's quick, it's easy. Let's make it happen in After Effects. Okay, so I'm in my value of sleep comp. Okay, double click it there. I've got my 2 audio files locked, and I'm going to lock the background layer. And what we'll do is we'll get this text to fade in, and then we'll get our icons to pop up. So make sure your play here is right at the beginning. And what we're going to do is twirl down this little arrow here, and we're going to twirl down transform. And what we're going to do is play with the opacity. At the beginning of my timeline, I'm going to click this little stopwatch. Okay, and what happens with that is that it sets a keyframe here at whatever setting this is. So it's set at a keyframe at 100% opacity. I can adjust it by clicking, holding, and dragging across, or you can just click it once and type it in. Okay, so I want it to be at 0 here, and after a bit of time, how far? Generally what I do is I just hold down the space bar, click the space bar once, and then turn it off again when I feel like it's been long enough, which is, that feels long enough. Okay, so it's been about 1 second. And all I'm gonna do is click, hold, and drag that up. And you'll see that as I drag it up, it's created a second keyframe. So first keyframe is at 0, next keyframe is at 100. So now, hopefully, yay. And what we'll do is after some time, I want it to then fade out. Now, one of the problems that happens with everybody that's new in my classes is that they'll now go and turn this down to 0, okay, to fade out, but they don't add any pause, because what happens now, watch this, is it goes up and then just instantly starts coming back down again. Think of it as a ramp, okay? It starts at 0, gets to 100%, and then starts coming down straight away. What I'd like to do is have a bit of a flat area where it stays at 100 for a while before it fades out. So I'm gonna undo to get rid of that keyframe. To do that is at about 2 seconds and 21 frames. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, see this little diamond here? Click on him. That forces in a keyframe without you having to adjust this. So it means that that is 100, now that is 100. Now if I move along a little bit further, I'm gonna set it down to 0. Okay, so ramp goes up, 0 to 100, stays at 100 for a while, and the ramp comes down back to 0. The value of sleep for creatives. Cool. So next bit of animation is going to be when this house appears. Okay, you can kind of, that's where I say it. You can't hear the audio very well through my microphone, but that's when the house kind of appears. So what we're going to do is twirl up this, get it nice and clean, is I'm going to drag in my house. Where is the house? He's down the bottom here of my libraries panel. I'm going to put him over here somewhere. Okay, and I'm going to zoom out. Yeah, it's just going to be in that top corner. You can, this one here, fit. We'll make sure the comp is perfectly centered in the center there. With these icons, you can resize them by grabbing the corners. Okay, now a little bit weird in After Effects, if you know some of the Adobe products, if you want to make sure the height and width doesn't change, and you want to drag these corners here, because without holding anything down, they scale weirdly. Okay, so what you do is you start dragging, so it's scaling weirdly, then hold Shift. Okay, and I'm holding down my mouse key and my Shift key. Okay, and you can adjust the sizes. We're not going to, because I've kind of made them all pretty good in Illustrator in the last course. Okay, so they're all the right size. So I'm gonna leave those. So what we're gonna do now is, at the moment it starts right at the beginning. I'd like it to start just before I say the word house. Okay, is I want to click, hold, and drag this colored part. Drag it, drag it, drag it, drag it. You see the beginning comes along. So now you can see it kind of just starts a little bit later on.
There is an ongoing debate in our
household. So we'll get the timing right in a second, but that's about right. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to put my playhead at the beginning of this layer here. Now I can kind of zoom in and make sure it's perfect, but our first little shortcut is going to be holding down the Shift key while you're dragging your playhead, or the current time indicator. Okay, so hold down the Shift key, and what happens is it'll jump to significant parts in your timeline. You can see it kind of jumps to the beginning of this. It also jumps to those markers, can you see? Jumps to the beginning. So it's just a really good thing to hold down Shift whenever you're dragging your timeline. Cool. So first thing I want to do is I want to twirl this down, and I want to find the scale. So we're going to set the stopwatch going on scale. Okay, so we've got a keyframe and the scale's at 100. I'm going to turn it down to 0. Click on, I was going to drag it. Too far. I'm going to just type in 0. Okay, and so it's at 0, then a bit further along. Okay, I'm going to drag it up to 100. Cool. So now, starts there, and very slowly it appears. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit on my timeline. To zoom in, okay, just type the plus button on your keyboard. Okay, just plus, nothing else. Minus zooms out. Okay, and what I want to do is maybe just bring this in so it's happening a little bit faster.
In our household, about the
Yeah, it's about right. Okay, we need to play around with easing and a few other things, but it's kind of there. So great, I'm going to twirl this in, okay, so it's all nice and tidy. And now we could start bringing in all the rest of them. You can see the wife, okay, and I'm going to bring in icon of my wife, okay, and I'm going to drag it along and start this a bit further along. So it starts here, holding shift to get it to the front. I'm going to twirl this down, transform, turn scale on, set it to 0, move it along a little bit, and then drag it up to 100. You can drag it past 100, just times it by 100. Okay, so I could keep going through and doing this for all the different icon appearances, but what's going to happen is I'm going to do it for all of these, and then the next thing I want to do is easing, so I'm going to have to go and do that to all of them separately. Then I'm going to have to add some sounds, and I'll have to do it all of them separately. So what you'll tend to do is I'm going to delete the girl, okay, and we're just going to work on the home, get it perfect, get it popping and bouncing, a little starburst, and then we'll duplicate it and just switch out the icon. That's a lot easier than trying to do it repetitively for all the separate icons. So let's work on home, and then later on we'll go and switch them out for all the different icons. All right, let's get on to the next video where we get rid of this kind of like lame PowerPointy zoom in thing. We're going to add a little bit of life to it. And that is called easing.